Hello everybody, how you doing? I hope you are well wherever you are in the world. Sincerely, I really do. Yeah, we're all over COVID, but we're not over COVID. It's actually still around and it's not doing nice things. So look after yourself, wear your mask where you've got lots of people around you. It's not about what you believe, it's actually about the bugs, the virus, germs, any of those sort of things. I have to admit that I haven't had anywhere near the number of colds and flu infections since we've started wearing masks in 2020. That sort of kind of helped me to see how effective they were, not just COVID, but in general, for not passing on airborne infections. So I think I might actually continue with this even once we're actually past the majors of what's going on with this. I'm just trying to have a look for something that's over here that I was going to show you the other day and I totally forgot. So just a moment, I shall be back in a minute. And I'm back. Whoop, too far. Right. How's that for dramatic effect? All done with real instead of digital effects. So, you know how I've got my treat jar? I'm just going to rearrange some things here. I don't want to spill my coffee all over my keyboard, even though it's an anti-splash type keyboard. I do want to fill up my drink bottle with water, so I'm going to do that, which is going to make a lot of noise undoing and doing up the lid. And the splashy noise probably makes you want to go to the loo, which is okay, you've got enough time. You know how long I usually chat for before I actually get started reading. You won't miss any story for a few minutes yet, at least. Right, that's out of the way. Done. You know how I have my treat jar, this treat jar, which came from the warehouse, and it's pet food thing, but hey, it works. It doesn't say it has to be for dogs or cats. It doesn't actually have this bit on it, it just has treat time. Well, I actually made up a little coloured version of my QR code for my coffee tips thing, and here it is. It's not quite as strongly coloured as I would really like, but hey, that's the difference between RGB when you're working on a screen and printing being done in CYMK, I think it is, CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow and black. So there you go, that's going to go onto here instead. Eventually I will cut it out and stick it on, probably with just some double-sided tape actually, if I'm honest about it. So I'm getting there, I'm getting more organised in some ways. So there you go, I'll hold it up nice and close so you can scan it if you want. Quick, before I take it away. Right, it's gone. Otherwise, there is a link somewhere that you can click on to be able to, probably on my About page on Twitch, actually. If you do want to, thanks Goriki, yeah. If you do want to actually give me a tip, as in not telling me helpful information, which I will give you some tips in a minute, but you know, the tipping sort of tips, financial. But no, that is not necessary. If you want to do it, that's great. So what was I going to tell you? There was a bunch of things I was going to tell you. I'm on the wrong page on my other computer monitor, so I will get that on the right page just because that's going to be more useful. Yeah. Did you notice my fancy countdown thing using I was going to say my font, well the font that I've commandeered to use for my some of my things. I made it work. It actually worked this time. I've tried to do that before and it starts it had previously started the timer at some odd number which didn't really relate to what I was trying to do, but this time it worked. So wonderful. Anyway, so I was going to say some things. Go on, I've got words. And I was going to do something with my phone. I was going to tell people that I was actually going to go live on Twitch. And I'm just going to do that because otherwise I will forget, just because I like sending out cute pictures which have absolutely nothing to do with what I'm doing on Twitch. So currently, what do you do to calm your brain? Sometimes it's the little things like labelling the spice jars. there you go. So I'm going to send that out. Story time now. No, not sorry time, story time. My phone should know this. I write story time so often. And then put in the link for those who will be going to see it on Facebook and Twitter. Yes, this is usually what I do beforehand. I was making coffee this time. You know, you've got to get your priorities right. Yeah, I got my priorities right. And then coming back over here and pasting that in here with the link, because even though you can't actually click on the link in Instagram, you can go to my bio, which has like a Linktree table of links there. It's not Linktree that I use, it's something else. I can't remember what it was, but I was able to choose colours differently to what you do in Linktree, and I just sort of thought, apparently Linktree is good, but I'm trying to think. There was some reason why I didn't want to use Linktree, and I haven't a clue what it was now. Yeah, warms up the smoke signals, that's about it. Thankfully, I do actually have my phone here, so it should be out there soon for those who follow me on Instagram, which is not everybody, obviously. Nearly there, nearly there. It's quite funny because there's some things my brain works really, really fast with because I'm ADHD, and it will just sort of like, and then there's other things where it's just like it gets bogged down. It's like the spinny wheel that you get on your computer. No, I don't want to tag people. Thank you very much. But I do want to put a location, not my actual location, but my approximate location, and post it to Facebook. There you go. That's ready to go. Tap the send button. This is where flapping the mat, the cloth over the top of the fire for the smoke signals. Yes, it did send both of them. That's good. Sometimes I don't actually attach the second image that I was going to send. Or like happens on Twitch, if you happen to follow me, no, not Twitch, Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, it's another one of those things. If you follow me on Twitter, the thing that I use to transfer posts from Instagram to Twitter only sends the first image of a set if I do a cluster of photos. So afterwards, because it doesn't post them straight away, afterwards I have to go over there and repost the pictures. It's a nuisance. I should probably find something else that'll cross-post for me better. But I'm not doing paid things, so don't even suggest that. So if you've got things like Linktree that you use to hold a collection of links associated with what you do, I most commonly come across them on people's Instagram bios because it's a great way for them to be able to share more than one link, because Instagram only lets you put one link, and links in posts are not clickable. Oh good, my phone is charging. And now I shall open it up to Twitch so I can have it sitting next to me and shouting at me if, actually speaking of shouting, make sure the sound's turned down, shouting at me if there's anything happens that I need to be aware of in my chat, because I can see it and my ADHD should notice it. I was talking about Linktree, wasn't I? So Linktree, do you have anything else like that you use to share your collection of social and website and other information thingy links from one page? Do you have a preferred one that you use? If so, let me know. I really am trying to figure out which is the best one for me. And no, I do not want ones that have to be a paid service. Ones that have a free service, but it's not too limited, are great. If it's a paid service right from scratch, and don't mean trial, I mean actually, you know, trial's no good to me because I'm going to have to then pay for it. Yeah, if you've got something like that you use, let me know. If you're on Discord, you can contact me through my Discord server, which I have just given you a link for. Yes, and yeah, I would have been deafening you with my keyboard, but that's okay. I'm going to give you another bit of typing in a moment, and so you need to get ready to put your fingers in your ears, and you can read the subtitles and the captions instead. I don't know how accurate they're going to be because they're usually a little bit wonky. Discord. So join my Discord server. You'll have to agree to the terms of use. It's a free service if you haven't used it before, just like Twitch and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and all those things. Nowhere near as much advertising as most of those though. But you can get into conversation about the books that we're reading or things that you've found out that might have anything to do with a book, which is a great way to actually just sort of immerse yourself a little bit more in it. Otherwise, come over and see me on Twitter. This is Twitch. Twitter, because you don't actually, it's not a closed loop on Twitter. You can actually see conversations with people who you aren't specifically already connected to if you type in their screen name. Right, so what am I doing? I'm Jev. I read old children's books. This is my intro for those of you who are new here, okay? So just sit down and listen for a minute and then we'll get on to reading soon or some other funny stuff. I read old children's books because they are the books that I grew up reading. That's why. And I like them. And I think people learn a lot from how life used to be, how other people used to see the world. All of those things are good for expanding your mind. Those are all good reasons for it, I think. So there you go. That's me reading. So things like this. This book was published at least 125 years ago because it was given to my grandmother's brother, very, very old person, long gone now, July 1897. So yeah, at least 125 years since that was published. Back in the days where books were really expensive compared with what they are now. And these days I tend to read either physical books like that or ebooks. So most of the books I read at the moment are on this, which is a first generation iPad mini that was a hand-me-down gift, which I love because it's still in use. It's not in the recycling. It's not in the rubbish. It's bringing a lot of useful, it's being useful instead of just being cast aside for the latest, greatest. I love technology, but within reason. I don't have the money for lots and lots of silly stuff, which is then going to not work in 2 months' time just because it was so brand new they hadn't ironed out the bugs. I don't need that sort of hassle. If it's something that works well and it can keep on working well, I like keeping on using it. So most of my computers over the years have been quite old before I finally actually replaced them. My last one I think was 9 years old and still going. Not well, but still going. It can be done. You need to know what you're doing to look after it. Make sure it's not overloaded and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, so, right, tips for new people. Yes, we've got to that part of the session. Tips for new people. I have 3 tips for you. The first tip is drinks. The second tip is snacks. And the third tip is comfortable. There you go. So here we go. This is how they work. Drinks. I always have water. It's great for your brain. It keeps it working well and also keeps your body working well. This is the one I wave at you so it doesn't splash water all over my camera and keyboard and microphone. When I'm actually reading, I'll probably drink from this. Yep, that's it. You got it. I also have, as an extra drink, my coffee. I just made that before, which is why I was having to do my Instagram update while I was online talking to you. So that was tip 1. Tip 2 is snacks. What have I got today? Let's see. I have a snack jar here. Well, a treat jar. Snacks in my treat time jar. We have in here, what is it? I should have been doing this a long time ago using a treat jar. I think it's a great idea. I have, oops, turn it around so you can see the label. Black Knight licorice. If you like licorice, it's good. If you don't like licorice, don't go near it. So I've got some of these for snacks. Yes, I'm rattling a lot, aren't I? It's a plastic bag inside a jar. So I've got licorice to snack on. I'll leave some out and then shut the jar. Put the lid on so the ants don't sneak in while I'm not watching. So that's drinks, that's snacks. Third one, comfort. Remember, somewhere comfortable to sit or stand or lie down. So this is the cushion that reminds me that you need to be comfortable. And if that means you need a streaming buddy, you do it. Get yourself your streaming buddy, get ready to sit, relax, and enjoy the story. I read old children's books, which I've already told you. There are others who read public domain books, which the books that I read are public domain books, which means they've gone out of copyright. The author has usually been dead at least 70 years, which is one aspect of figuring out if a book is still within copyright or not. There are a bunch of other people who read old books. They're not all specifically children's books. Most of them are actually books that are written not specifically for children. In other words, books written for adults. And over here you will see an image that says Codex and then my screen name. Codex is this group of readers who read public domain books on Twitch. Some of us also put the videos over onto YouTube as well. So here is the link for the Codex Discord server. There you go. Go over there. And you don't have to be an online book reader to join Codex's Discord server. You can get into discussions about the books that you like, that you want to find out more about, get to know the different people who are the readers for Codex, and also join the book club and the movie club. I haven't actually managed to make any of the online get-togethers for those yet, just because of the time zone that I'm in. I'm in New Zealand, so it means that can get a little bit difficult sometimes because most of the people are in North America and Europe. So I'm not going to be getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to partake of that sort of discussion usually. But if book club is your sort of thing, then please come and join Codex Discord server. Also, if you want to listen to other readers in the Codex group, then have a look on my About Me page on Twitch. Right, this is the video. Down below on the About Me page, there is a section that says Codex, and there is a list of links to all the different Codex readers there. So you can go to all their Twitch channels, you can follow all of them, you can get to know them, you can subscribe to their channels, which will financially help them out just a little bit. It's not a lot, just a little bit. Actually, if you've got a Amazon Prime subscription and you haven't used it yet, you get a free Twitch sub that you can use every month on whoever you feel like you want to put it on, and it's not going to cost you anything more. It's actually part of your Amazon Prime subscription. I don't actually have that sort of thing just because I don't do a lot of stuff that it's going to help me with, like Prime shipping. Makes no difference. I live in New Zealand. We don't have Amazon in New Zealand. They have to send it from overseas. It's not going to get here any quicker. But if I did live in the States, I would definitely have it. There you go. What else? So that's the Codex readers, and I will give a shout out to Goreki, who is or was here. I don't know if he's still here at the moment. Goreki is another one of our Codex readers, and I do know how to spell his name, so there you go. Goreki works as a teacher. Yes, still here. Wonderful. Goreki is a teacher, and so what he does is he does his reading in the big holiday periods at this for where he works. He lives in Japan, and so the big holiday periods are a chunk of weeks in summer and a chunk of weeks in winter, and he doesn't do the online reading during the rest of the time because he wants to look after his voice for the work that he does at school, which is great. Makes sense. And it probably means it doesn't get quite so boring if you're reading all the time, sort of thing. Off work today. Brilliant. I hope that means that you're still okay, not ill or anything like that, just having a day off. That would be nice. You must be coming up to school holidays soon, I would imagine. Vacation, I suppose you call it. We just call them holidays in New Zealand. We're very old-fashioned English sort of styling. So Goreki's one of our readers. We have a really wide variety of people who read. We have people who are librarians, teachers, housewives. That's me. I actually work from home as well, but it's for our home-based business, so I see myself as also being a housewife. I'm not sure if we've got anyone who's unemployed. We possibly do. That wouldn't be surprising, just because it's something you can do in your time. We have actors and voice actors. We have people who actually are professional book narrators. And in their spare time, they read books for you. And I would think that would be quite Initially, I used to think that it was the same, but it's not, because what happens is when you're narrating a book, you get it in basically a sound sterile space, so you don't get what I get with the noise of the wind and the chimney and the trucks going past down the road, someone grinding the coffee in the coffee machine downstairs, and all those sort of weirdo things going on. If you are narrating a book for reading a book for an audio narration, you need to get a clean, clear, uninterrupted sound. But that also means that sometimes you have to reread something to get it just right, to get your intonation correct, your pronunciation, the tone, all of those sort of things, which I don't do. I'm just a once-through person. I mean, I'll happily read a book again, but only because I'm enjoying it, not because I need to actually read that bit again. So what you get here is unedited. What you are getting here, if you're watching this on YouTube, is also unedited, except that I will have trimmed off the overlay, so you're only getting this bit of video, and you don't get any chat on the side or anything like that. And I would have cut off the very beginning where it says starting soon. And that's all I do for editing. Unless I have it like a 10-minute break in the middle of a read because I had to go and do something and I put a be right back screen up. I might chop that out. That's the limit of my edits. I don't correct anything. I don't make it nice and punchy. You get all this chat over on YouTube as well as here. But on YouTube, you also get playlists of the books, so you can actually listen all the way through. So there's advantages either way. But if you like being involved with community, if you like actually interacting with other people online as it's happening, then Twitch is the place to be for if you want my book reads. So I think that's enough about me, isn't it? Oh, I've also got a snack log, a sad little snack log. It's sitting here. It's been here for a week. Carob coated fruit and nut. Carob always seems just slightly sad. I don't know about for you, but for me, carob just feels like, oh, I wanted to be chocolate, but I wasn't allowed to be, so I'm carob. Feel sorry for me. I don't know about you, but that's how it feels for me. It's not too bad, but it's definitely not a chocolate replacement because it's not chocolate. Anyway, right. I think, that's the other thing is if you're watching on Twitch, you get to do jigsaw puzzles when I remember to put them up for you. Whereas if you are watching on YouTube, you don't get those because you won't even see them. So I'm going to give you a jigsaw puzzle. There you go, except I need to actually get the links and everything ready for you so you can use it. That is currently 108 puzzle pieces. I'm going to take that down slightly to, there you go, 88 pieces, so it won't be quite so complex. Change the colour on it, the background, so it looks a little bit less clashing with the background of my screen, and I shall get it ready to give you the link. Find the right tab on my other computer monitor. Yeah, I know I was meant to do this beforehand, but I was making coffee, remember? Got to get your priorities straight. Chat commands. Yeah, this is something that I have to actually, every time I do a jigsaw, put one up for you, I put in the fresh invitation link for you so that you can just pull it up in chat if you want to use it. So that's saved and ready to go if you want to do the jigsaw puzzle today, or the first jigsaw puzzle today. I'm sure there's going to be some other ones. I think we're ready. And I'm just making sure that no one's telling me things I've forgotten over in my Discord server. No, nobody's telling me I've forgotten something over there, so that's good. Jonathan and Q and Aunt have all at different times had to let me know when my microphone wasn't working and things like that. Oh, chat. Sometimes I forget to turn chat on, but I can see that it's been working, so then we're all okay. I will look at that a bit later. I don't quite need to look at that bit at the moment. I get very easily distracted, in case you hadn't noticed. Right, back to the right page. Back to here. And let me know if that jigsaw puzzle is not working. Just because, sometimes I need to redo the link for it or whatever. And that's probably the easiest way to deal with it. So, what are we reading at the moment? We are reading The House of Arden, and it's a book by Edith Nesbit, who published it in, I think, 1907, something like that. An English author. She wrote a whole bunch of children's books, probably the most famous one that most older adults, at least, I don't know about younger adults, but most adults have heard of, if they have heard of any of her books, is The Railway Children. And most people, it won't be the book, it will be a children's movie or a children's television series that they have come across. Very much beloved story. It's a standalone story, that one. A lot of her other ones are series stories. Just because they are, where she has written a book and then she's written two sequels or one sequel. This one here is the first of two. We've read several other series of hers and they've been lots of fun. One of the things I enjoy about her writing is she's quite descriptive without being frilly and florally and over the top and let's just go on and on and on and on about stuff, which I have to admit Tolkien does. And it just bores me to pieces. I got halfway through the second one of his most famous books, The Two Towers it was, I think. The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, what was the last one? I can't remember, but there's 3 books in a row in the series, the main series that everyone loves. And I got halfway through one of them and I'm just like, oh, come on, let's make something happen. You're just talking about the landscape still. And so in the end, I just put it down. Didn't go back to it. I learned a big lesson from that. I don't actually have to finish a book. When I was growing up, I felt I had to finish a book whether I liked it or not. You don't. If you don't like the book, don't keep reading it. Unless you think it really is going to pick up. That one probably would have, but it was just like, oh, stop it. Get on with the story, which is what I'm meant to be doing. So, I like Ms. Nesbit's books because she does use description. You feel like you can connect with what she's talking about, but the children feel like they are based on children that could have easily lived in real life. They don't feel too stylized, too goody two-shoes or anything like that. They get up to mischief. They learn things from their mistakes. She doesn't preach at you to try and improve your behaviour, which a lot of the authors who wrote before her and even around her time did. Books for children were meant to have a good moral to the story so they could learn from it and improve themselves. And it's like, well, some of them are so boring. Why would they expect someone who was going to even read them to learn from it? Now, her books will often have a moral to the story, like beware of what you wish for. But she doesn't actually explicitly spell it out. It's very much part of the way the story unfolds. And the kids get up to all sorts of mischief and get on badly with each other sometimes and well other times and all that. It feels more real. Even though it's very much fantasy stories, it feels more realistic, more relatable. And I enjoy that. So I've been trying to spread her books out a little so we can read something else and then come back to another one, just because I've been enjoying them. And we now are in the territory of reading books of hers that I have not read before. I have not read all of her books, but that's good. Let's get on with reading then. I think I've chatted for long enough. Right, The House of Arden by Edith Nesbit. Oh, by the way, did I miss anything? Tell me if I missed anything I was meant to tell you about. And I'll try and keep an eye on the chat and cover it when I can, when I spot it, and I can get a break in the words of the story. Okay? Right, I'll get on with reading. The House of Arden by Edith Nesbit. We are reading Chapter 7, The Key of the Parlour. And I'm probably going to have to go back over the last paragraph of the last chapter because this book seems to have a much stronger connection from one chapter into the next to make it make sense. Whereas some of her other ones you can just, it's almost like a separate story, but it's not a separate story. She starts in media res, in the middle of the scene, in the middle of the action. Kind of. Elfrida was behind the secret panel and the panel had shut with a spring. Right, we're going back. See what it says. So at the end of the last chapter, Edred had been outside the secret panel, trying to get in, but he'd kind of accidentally tipped the chair and fallen off, and in the same process had bumped the door of the secret panel, and it had shut. Elfrida is inside the secret panel in the space there. She has the candle, but she doesn't have the matches because Edred didn't want to miss out on the adventure, so he wasn't going to give her the matches so she couldn't go ahead of him up the stairs and blah, blah, blah to the secret room. So she's inside with this useless candle because she has no matches. It's dark, the door is shut, and she can't see anything to find her way. And Edred is outside. He has hurt his leg, and he's not the one who unlocked the panel to know how to get in. So, open the panel first, said Elfrida, rather unfeelingly, but then she was alone in the dark on the other side of the panel. This is just the end of the previous chapter, so we can carry on. I don't know how to, said Edred, and Elfrida heard the sound of someone picking himself up from among disordered furniture, because he'd tipped the chair over and fallen on the floor. Feel among the leaves like I did, she said. It's quite easy. You'll soon find it. Silence. What's going on out there? So, the key of the parlour. This is the next chapter. Elfrida was behind the secret panel, and the panel had shut with a spring. She had come there hoping to find the jewels that had been hidden 200 years ago by Sir Edward Talbot, when he was pretending to be the Chevalier St. George. She had not even had time to look for the jewels before the panel closed, and now that she was alone in the dusty dark, with the door shut between her and the bright light parlour where her brother was, the jewels hardly seemed to matter at all. Yeah, I can get that. And what did so dreadfully and very much matter was that closed panel. Edred had tried to open it, and he had fallen off the chair. Well, there had been plenty of time for him to get up again. Why don't you open the door? She called impatiently, and there was no answer. Behind that panel, silence seemed 1,000 times more silent than it ever had before, and it was so dark, and Edred had the matches in his pocket. Edred! Edred! She called suddenly and very loud. Why don't you open the door? There's a hint of panic creeping in. And this time he answered. Because I can't reach, he said. I feel that I ought to make that... I'm sorry, I'm just pre-reading this sentence because it doesn't make sense. Oh, okay. I feel that I ought to make that the end of the chapter and leave you to wonder till the next how Elfrida got out and how she liked the not getting out, which certainly looked as though it was going to last longer than anyone could possibly be expected to find pleasant. Well, as an author, she kind of did, except not quite at that point. It still left us wondering. I remember thinking that when I stopped there for you last time, that, ooh, that's a bit of a cliffhanger ending, kind of. Right. Could not possibly find that pleasant, but that would make the chapter too short. Oh, yeah, it would make the chapter too short. And there are other reasons, so I will not disguise from you that when Elfrida put her hand to her pocket and felt something there, something hard and heavy, and remembered that she had put the key of the parlour there because it was such a nice safe place where it couldn't possibly be lost, she uttered what is known as a hollow groan. Aha, you see now, said Edred outside. You see, I'm not so stupid after all. Elfrida was thinking. I say, she called through the panel, it's no use my standing here. I shall try to feel my way up to the secret chamber. I wish I could remember whether there's a window there or not. If I were you, I should just take a book and read it till something happens. Mrs. Honeysett's sure to come back sometime. Okay, so what has happened was they had locked, I think they've locked the house doors and shut all the windows so no one interrupts them in what they're doing. And then it talked about them locking the parlour door, and I had forgotten that was, they had gone into the parlour, which is where this panel was, and they had locked the door behind them so once again people couldn't interrupt them. Now Elfrida has the key in her pocket and she's in behind the secret panel. And that means Edred is locked in the parlour and can't go anywhere either. I don't quite know how she thinks that Mrs. Honeysett is going to come in and help them, unless they think Mrs. Honeysett has spare keys. Anyway, I can't hear half what you say, said Edred. You do whiffle so. Take a book, shouted his sister. Read. Mrs. Honeysett will come back some time. So Edred got down a book called Red Cotton Nightcap Country, which he thought looked interesting, but I don't advise you try it. It sounds like it's boring. And Elfrida, her heart beating rather heavily, put out her hands and felt her way along the passage to the stairs. It's all very well, she told herself. The secret panel is there all right, like it was when I went into the past, but suppose the stairs are gone, or weren't ever really there at all, or suppose I walked straight into a wall or something, or perhaps not a wall, a well. She's really borrowing worries, isn't she? She suggested to herself with a sudden thrill of terror, and after that she felt very carefully with each foot in turn before she ventured to put it down in a fresh step. The boards were soft to tread on as though they had been carpeted with velvet, and so were the stairs, for there were stairs, sure enough. She went up them very slowly and carefully, reaching her hands before her, and at last her hands came against something that seemed like a door. She stroked it gently, feeling for the latch, which she presently found. The door had not been opened for such a very long time that it was not at all inclined to open now. Sorry, getting lost. I forgot to tell you that, didn't I? I have the magical ability of being able to get lost on the page halfway through a sentence when my eyes are on the line I am reading out loud to you. I bet you can't do that. It's special skills, that. Right, and I found it again. The door had not been open for such a very long time that it was not at all inclined to open now. Elfrida had to shove with shoulder and knee, and with all the strength she had, the door gave way, out of politeness, I should think, for Elfrida's knee and shoulder and strength were all quite small. And there was the room, just as she had seen it when the Chevalier St. George stood in it, bowing and smiling by the light of one candle on a silver candlestick, because he was there at night. Only now Elfrida was alone, and the light was a sort of green twilight that came from a little window over the mantelpiece that was hung outside with a thick curtain of ivy, which is probably why it hadn't been seen before. If Elfrida had come out of the sunlight, she would have called this a green darkness. But she had been so long in the dark that this shadowy dusk seemed quite light to her. All the same, she made haste, when she had shut the door, to drag a chair in front of the fireplace and to get the window open. It opened inwards, and it did not want to open at all, but it also was polite enough to yield to her wishes. And when it had suddenly given way, she reached out and broke the ivy leaves off one by one, making more and more daylight in the secret room. She did not let the leaves fall outside, but on the hearthstone, for, said she, we don't want outside people to get to know all about the Arden's secret hiding place. I'm glad I thought of that. I really am rather like a detective in a book. She's trying to encourage herself, I think. When all the leaves were plucked from the window's square and only the brown ivy boughs left, she turned back to the room. Now, I would say that this is high enough up in the house and hidden enough amongst the leaves. See, like this is probably ivy on the wall here. If there was a tiny little patch in there where there were no leaves, it probably wouldn't be particularly noticeable. I don't think it's a very big window. And up on a big wall that's covered with ivy, there's probably still enough ivy poking out, the leaves hanging out like this from the wall, that it would still hide it from sight. You wouldn't directly be seeing into the window or the window itself, I hope. Anyway, finding out just about where I got to. When all the leaves were plucked from the window's square and only the brown ivy boughs were left, she turned back to the room to have a look. The furniture was all powdered heavily with dust, and what had made the floor so soft to walk upon was the thick carpet of dust that lay there, so nobody's been there for a long time. There was the table on which the Chevalier St. George, no, Sir Edward Talbot, had set the tray. There were the chairs, and there, sure enough, was the corner cupboard in which he had put the jewels. Elfrida got its door open, which I don't know what of mingled hopes and fears. It had 3 shelves, but the jewels were on none of them. I'm just looking to see if there's actually an illustration here. Pretty sure that's the illustration I'm meant to be showing you right now. Not quite. Okay, I'll get it for you in a minute. Elfrida got its door open with I don't know what of mingled hopes and fears. It had 3 shelves, but the jewels were on none of them. In fact, there was nothing on any of them. But on the inside of the door, her hand, as she held it open, felt something rough. And when she looked, it was a name carved, and when she swung the door well back so that the light fell full on it, she saw that the name was E. Talbot. Here she is. She's standing on the chair. There's the corner cupboard with 3 shelves in it. There's nothing in the cupboard, but she's looking at the back of the door, and cut into the surface of the door is E. Talbot or Talbot. Isn't that the name of the chap? Sir Edward Talbot. I'm going to go with Talbot for now. Oh yeah, there's me in words. Here you go. I'll give you that explanation, just in case you're wondering. I have a tendency to say words one way and then say them another, and I'm currently looking over the top of my book stand so I can see where I'm meant to be clicking for my turning things on and off. So there you go. Right, carrying on. E. Talbot. Sorry, that was the microphone. Hope I didn't deafen you. So then she knew that all she had seen in the room before must have really happened 200 years before, and was not just a piece of magic mouldy-warpness. So the mouldy-warp was this mole who's blonde or white, and seems to be a magical being, and also the emblem of the House of Arden, the family. So we'll see. She climbed up on the chair again and looked out through the little window. She could see nothing of the castle walls, only the distant shoulder of the downs and the path that cut across it towards the station. She would have liked to see a red figure or a violet one coming along that path, but there was no figure on it at all, because that's the maidservant and Mrs. Honeysett, I think it is. What do you usually do when you're shut up in a secret room with no chance of getting out for hours? As for me, I always say poetry to myself. It's one of the uses of poetry. One says it to oneself in distressing circumstances of that kind, or when one has to wait at railway stations, or when one cannot get to sleep at night. You will find poetry most useful for this purpose. I haven't actually learned any to do that, to try it. Have you? So, learn plenty of it, and be sure it is the best kind, because this is the most useful as well as most agreeable. Yes, find stuff that you enjoy reciting. Elfrida began with "Ruin seize thee, ruthless king," but there were parts of that which she liked best when there were other people around, so she stopped it. It's probably a little gruesome. And began "Horatius and the Bridge." This lasts a long time. I'm guessing these are all pieces of famous bits of poetry. So ruin seize thee, ruthless king. That's the first line of a poem, I'm betting, and you can look that one up. Oh, that's one of my extra tips. One of my bonus tips is have a pen or pencil and paper handy so you can write down things you want to look up for some other time. I will occasionally get stuck on a word or be a little unsure as to what its actual meaning is, in which case you can look that up and then just type it into the chat and I'll read it out to everybody, so even those who can't see chat can know what the word is. Anyway, I'll carry on reading. And then the other one is Horatius and the Bridge, which I think is the title of it, and you can look that one up too and find out. Most of the time when she references things like this, they are real. This lasts a long time, so it's a long poem. Then came the favourite came the favourite cat drowned in a tub of goldfish. And in the middle of that, quite suddenly, and I don't know why, she thought of the Mouldiwarp. We didn't quite quarrel, she told herself, because they had to learn to not quarrel and actually not quarrel for 3 days to be able to get the Mouldiwarp's magical help. We didn't quite quarrel, she told herself, at least not really truly quarrelling. I might try anyhow. So she set to work to make a piece of poetry to call up the Mouldiwarp with. This was how, after a long time, the first piece came out. The Mouldiwarp of Arden, by the 9 gods it swore that Elfrida of Arden should be shut up no more. By the 9 gods it swore it, and named a convenient time, no doubt, and bade its messengers ride forth, east and west, south and north, to let Elfrida out. But when she said it aloud, nothing happened. I wonder, said Elfrida, whether it's because we quarrelled, or because it just says he let me out and doesn't ask him to, or because I had to say Elfrida to make it sound right, or because it's such dreadful nonsense. I'll try again. She tried again. This time she got, behind the secret panel's lines the pensive Elfrida reclines, and wishes she was at home. At least I'm at home, of course, but things are getting worse and worse. Dear mole, come, 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 come. I don't really think that counts as poetry. She said it aloud, and when she came to the last words, there was the white Mouldiwarp sitting on the floor at her feet, looking up at her with eyes that blinked. You are good to come, said Elfrida. Well, what do you want now? Said the Mouldiwarp. I ought to tell you that I oughtn't to ask you to do anything, but I didn't think you'd come if it really counted as a quarrel. It was only a little one, and we were both very sorry quite directly. You have a straightforward nature, said the Mouldiwarp. Well, well, I must say you've got yourself into a nice hole. It would be a very nice hole, said Elfrida eagerly, if only the panel were open. I wouldn't mind how long I stayed here then. That's funny, isn't it? Yes, said the mole. Well, if you hadn't quarrelled, I could get you into another time, sometime when the panel was open and you could just walk out. You shouldn't quarrel. So the magic he does is to do with whether or not they've quarrelled, but he can appear even if they have quarrelled, because he's just said, if you hadn't quarrelled, I could have sent you somewhere else. It makes everything different, he says. It puts dust into the works. It stops the wheels of the clock. The clock, said Elfrida slowly. Couldn't that work backwards? I don't know what you mean, said the mole. I don't know that I quite know myself, Elfrida explained, but the daisy clock. You sit on the second hand and there isn't any time, and yet there's lots when you're not sitting. If I could sit on the daisy clock, the time wouldn't be anything before someone comes to let me out. But I can't get to the daisy clock, even if you'd make it for me. So that's no good. You are a very, very clever girl, said the Mouldiwarp, and all clocks in the world aren't made of daisies. Move the tables and chairs back against the wall. We'll see what we can do for you. While Elfrida was carrying out this order, the white mole stood on its hind feet and called out softly in a language she could not understand. Others understood it, though, it seemed, for a white pigeon fluttered in through the window, and then another, and another, till the room seemed full of circling wings and gentle cooings, and a shower of soft white feathers fell like snow. And I'm just going to hit the pause button here and go and shut a door, because there are too many people talking downstairs who are not part of this household, and they are doing business. So just a moment, I shall be right back. I'm back. There you go. There's probably still going to be a little bit of noise, but it's better than it was. Sorry, hang on. Kind of back. Just got to get the cardigan out of the way. Right, that's what comes of running up and down the stairs. Right. You are a very clever little girl, said the Mouldiwarp, and all the clocks in the world aren't made of daisies. Move the tables and chairs back against the wall. We'll see what we can do for you. I need to have a mouthful of water. Right. While Elfrida was carrying out this order, the white mole stood on its hind feet and called out softly in a language she did not understand. Others understood it, though, it seemed, for a white pigeon fluttered in through the window, just as well she opened it. And then another, and another, till the room seemed full of the circling wings and gentle cooings, and a shower of soft white feathers fell like snow. Then the mole was silent, and one by one the white pigeons sailed back through the window into the blue and gold world of outdoors. Get up on a chair and keep out of the way, said the Mouldiwarp. And Elfrida did. Oh, and there was a picture to do with that. I'll get you the picture. Here we go. There's Elfrida standing here by the table. She's got her hand on the table. And here's the window. That's the fireplace. And these are the pigeons coming in through the window and flying around in the room. Intriguing. I wonder what's going to happen next. Sorry, coffee time now too. Sorry, I wasn't meaning to pun when I said coffee time. It just worked that way. And because it's long chapters, I am going to have a snack partway through, like now. And get my hair clip out of the way because it's trying to attack my keyboard. Right. I need to keep turning pages on my book because that one takes up a full page. That picture of the birds coming in. Here we go. And then a soft wind blew through the little room, a wind like the wind that breathes softly in walled gardens and shakes down the rose leaves on sparkling summer mornings. And the white feathers on the floor were stirred by the sweet wind and drifted into little heaps and lines and curves till they made on the dusty floor the circle of a clock face, with all its figures and its long hand and its short hand and its second hand. And the white mole stood in the middle. All white things obey me, it said, because it's the white mole. Come, sit down on the minute hand, and you'll be there in no time. Where? Asked Elfrida, getting off the chair. Why, at the time when they opened the panel. Let me get out of the clock first, and give me the key of the parlour door. It will save time in the end. So Elfrida sat down on the minute hand, and instantly it began to move round, faster than you can possibly imagine. And it was very soft to sit on, like a cloud would be if the laws of nature ever permitted you to sit on a cloud. And it spun round so that it seemed no time at all before she found herself sitting on the floor and heard voices and knew that the secret panel was open. See, she said wisely, it does work backwards, doesn't it? But there was no one to answer her, for the Mouldiwarp was gone, and the white pigeon's feathers were in heaps on the floor. She saw them as she stood up, and there wasn't any clock face any more. Edred soon got tired of red cotton nightcap country. So this is the next section of the chapter, which really is not half such good fun as it sounds, even for grown-ups, and he tried several other books, but reading them did not seem amusing somehow. I'm guessing it's not a library full of books for children. And the house was so much too quiet, and the clock outside ticked so much too loud, and Elfrida was shut up, and there were bars to the windows, and the door was locked. He walked about and sat in each of the chairs in turn, but not one of them was comfortable, and his thoughts were not comfortable either. Suppose no one ever came to let them out. Supposing the years rolled on and found him still a prisoner when he was a white-haired old man, like people in the Bastille, or in iron masks, that's from books and history that he's learnt. His eyes filled with tears at the thought. Fortunately, it did not occur to him that unless someone came pretty soon, he would be unlikely to live to a great age, since people cannot live long without eating. If he had thought of this, he would have been even more unhappy than he was, and he was quite unhappy enough. Then he began to wonder if anything had happened to Elfrida. She was dreadfully quiet inside there behind the panel. He wished he had not quarrelled with her. Everything was very miserable. He went to the window and looked out, as Elfrida had done, to see if he could see a red dress or a violet dress coming over the downs. But there was nothing, and the time got longer and longer, drawing itself out like a putty snake. Putty is a special compound that you used to use for putting around the edge of glass in a window frame to seal it so that the water wouldn't get in around the edge of the glass. And then once it had dried, you'd paint it. Very pleasant to fiddle with and to play with. A little bit like plasticine or silly putty or blue tack even, although not quite as stretchy and rubbery as those ones are. But lots of fun in its own way. So, kind of also a little bit like Play-Doh, but not quite as crumbly as that can be. Right, so putty. Now I need to find putty. And time got longer and longer, drawing itself out like a putty snake when you rub it between your warm hands, the warmth of your hands, rubbing the putty like this, and it's a roll, and it gets longer and longer and more stretchy. Putty is made with linseed oil and something else, I'm not quite sure which, and so as the warmth from your hands goes into it, it softens and stretches. Drawing itself out like a putty snake when you rub it between your warm hands, and at last, what with misery and having cried a good deal, and its being long past tea time, he fell asleep on the window seat. He was roused by a hand on his shoulder, and a voice calling his name. Next moment he was in the arms of Aunt Edith, or as much in her arms as he could be, with the window bars between them. Aunt Edith was outside. When he had told her where Elfrida was and where the room key was, which took some time, he began to cry again, for he did not quite see even now how he was going to be got out. "Now don't be a silly dear," said Aunt Edith. The children live with her. "If we can't get you out any other way, I'll run and fetch a locksmith. But look what I found right in the middle of the path as I came up from the station." It was a key, and tied to it was an ivory label, and on the label were written the words, "Parlour door, Arden." "You might try it," she said. I think that was the Mouldiwarp's doing. He did try it, and it fitted, and he unlocked the parlour door and then the front door so that Aunt Edith could come in. And together they got the kitchen steps and found the secret spring and opened the panel and got out the dusty Elfrida. And then Aunt Edith lighted the kitchen fire and boiled the kettle. They had tea, which everyone wanted very badly indeed, and Aunt Edith had brought little cakes for tea with pink icing on them, very soft inside with apricot jam. And then she had come to stay over Sunday. So the children are living in this house with the housekeeper, and their aunt is living away from there, working somewhere else, but she's going to come and stay with them for the weekend. She was as much excited as the children over the secret panel, and after tea, when Edred had fetched Emily back from the wild goose chase for a parcel at the station on which she was still engaged, they'd sent her off so that she wouldn't be checking up on what they were doing. The aunt and the niece and the nephew explored the secret stair and the secret chamber thoroughly. Now, I've just had a thought. When Elfrida was told to go up the secret stair to the secret room the first time, she was told to go up and then turn right, I think it was, which implies that quite possibly there is another passage that goes the other way or straight ahead or something like that. This castle, this house within the castle, may actually have more passages within it. Ooh, that's interesting. Anyway, The aunt and the niece and the nephew explored the secret stair and the secret chamber thoroughly. "What a wonderful lot of pigeon feathers," said Aunt Edith. "They must have been piling up here for years and years." "It was lucky you finding that key," said Edred. "I wonder who dropped it. Where's the other one, Elf?" "I don't know," said Elfrida truthfully. "It isn't in my pocket now." And though Edred and Aunt Edith searched every corner of the secret hiding place, they never found that key. That's because Elfrida alone knows that she gave it to the Mouldiwarp, and that as Mrs. Honeysett declared that there had never been a parlour key with a label on it in her time, it certainly does seem as though the mole must have put the key he got from Elfrida on the path for Aunt Edith to find, after carefully labelling it to prevent mistakes. Sounds very sensible to me. How the mole got the label is another question, but I really think that finding a label for a key is quite a simple thing to do. I have done it myself. Whereas making a clock face of white pigeon feathers is very difficult indeed, and a thing that I have never been able to do. And as for making that clock face the means of persuading time to go fast or slow just as one wishes, well, I don't suppose even you could do that. Elfrida found it rather a relief to go back to the ordinary world, where magic moles did not upset the clock, a world made pleasant by nice aunts and old delightful games that delight ordinary people, games such as Hunt the Thimble, What's My Thought Like, and Proverbs. Those are all games you can look up, actually. Hunt the Thimble, that's one game. What is My Thought Like is another one. And Proverbs. They sound very old-fashioned to me. The three had a delightful weekend, and Aunt Edith told them all about the lodges and the seaside house, which already seemed very long ago. They had not been enjoying living in Aunt Edith's house and having to have lodgers there who seemed to think that the family were their servants. It wasn't that pleasant. Seemed such a long time ago. And very far away. It's actually just in the nearest town or village, really. On Sunday evening, as they walked home from Arden Church, where they had tried to attend the service and not to look too much at the tombs and monuments of dead and gone Ardens that lined the chancel. Chancel is, I think, that's one I'm going to look up for you. The chancel is a space around the altar, including the choir and the sanctuary, at the liturgical east end of a traditional Christian church building. There you go. That's the bit up if you've got a very old style church, which is, when you look at the floor plan of it, they will often be sort of like a cross shape. The chancel is that furthest forward section of it from that description. And that's where often the important people of a community, their tombs would be around there, or their memorial stones would be around there. So that's what they had been looking at. The three sat down on Arden Knoll, that's the top of the hill behind the castle, and Aunt Edith explained things a little to them. She told them much more than they could understand about wills and trustees and incomes, but they were honoured by her confidence and pleased by the fact that she seemed to think that they could understand such grown-up kinds of things. So that's where she's been off to London to actually find out more about the fact that Edred has inherited the property and the title, and we don't know what else that goes with it. And so there's probably some legal things that have to be done and taken care of. And I would say that she's probably acting as his guardian or their guardian at the moment. I think they do still have a parent alive, but who lives overseas. I'm not sure. I can't remember. That was at the beginning of the book, and I've forgotten already. Anyway, so they were appreciative of the fact that she would explain this stuff to them, even if they didn't specifically understand it. And the thing that remained on their minds after the talk, like a ship cast up by a high tide, was this, that Arden Castle was theirs, and that there was very little money to keep it up with. so that everyone must be very careful and no one must be at all extravagant. And Aunt Edith was going back to the world of lawyers and wills and trustees early on Monday morning, and they must be very good children and not bother Mrs. Honeysett, and never, never lock themselves in and hide the key in safe places. All this remained as the lasting result of the pleasant talk on the downs in the softly lessening light. And another thing remained, which Edred put into words as the two children walked back from the station where they had seen Aunt Edith into the train and waved their goodbyes to her. Excuse me. "It's very important indeed," he said, "for us to find the treasure. Then we could keep up the castle without any bother. We must have it built up again first, of course, and then we'll keep it up, and we won't have any old clocks and not keeping together this time. We'll both of us go and find the attic the minute our quarrel's 3 days old, and we'll ask the Mouldiwarp to send us to a time when we can really see the treasure with our own eyes. I do think that's a good idea, don't you?" he asked with a modest pride. "Very," Elfrida said, "and I say, Edred, I don't mean to quarrel any more if I can help it. It is such a waste of time," she added in her best grown-up manner, "and it does delay everything so. Delays are dangerous. It says so in the proverb game. Suppose there really was a chance of getting the treasure and we had to wait 3 days because of quarrelling. But I'll tell you one thing I found out. You can get the mole to come and help you, even if you have quarrelled a little. Because I did." And she told him how. I'm just going to write those things down I wanted to look up. So I'm writing down games, proverbs. Sorry, just because it's being referenced again. And so I feel that, there you go, hunt the thimble. Which sounds familiar, not that I've played it. And what is my thought like? I'm guessing it's kind of like guess what I'm thinking about. What is my thought like? Yeah, I've got them written down now. And if I find out what they are, I hope to remember to write them in our Discord server, so you can find out a bit more about them yourself. If you find out what they are, you can write them in the Discord server. There you go. And please, somebody remind me later on to put the illustrations for the book in the right channel on our Discord server. Otherwise, we're losing out on these lovely illustrations. Anyway, carrying on. And she told him how. "But I expect," she added, "it would only come if I were in the most awful trouble and all human aid despaired of." Because, yeah, she was stuck in this hole and she couldn't get out. "Well, we're not that now," said Edred, knocking the head off a poppy with his stick. "And I'm jolly glad we're not." "I wonder," said Elfrida, "who lives in that cottage where the witch was? I know exactly where it is. I expect it's been pulled down, though. Let's go round that way. It'll be something to do." This is walking back from the station. So they went round that way, and the way was quite easy to find. But when they got to the place where the tumble-down cottage had been in Boney's time, that's Napoleon Bonaparte, there was only a little slate-roofed house with a blue bill pasted up on its yellow brick face. That's yellow brick front wall. Blue bill is like a poster. Blue. Stick no bills means don't stick advertising posters here. That's bill, that sort of use of it. There was only a blue bill pasted up on its yellow brick face saying that somebody's A1 ginger beer and up-to-date minerals were sold there. So it's kind of like a little corner store. The house was dull to look at, and they did not happen to have any spare money for ginger beer, so they turned round to go home and suddenly found themselves face to face with a woman. She wore a red and black plaid blouse. That means checked. Kind of like tartan, but not quite so fancy, maybe. No, plaid is probably more like tartan. Wore a red and black plaid blouse and a bought ready-made black skirt, and on her head was a man's peaked cap, such as women in the country wear now, instead of the pretty sunbonnets that they used to wear when I was a little girl. "So they've pulled the old cottage down," she said. "This new house'll be fine and dry inside, I lay. The rain comes in through the roof of the old one, so's you might almost as well be laying in the open meadow." The children listened politely, and both were wondering where they had seen this woman before, for her face seemed strangely familiar to them. And yet they didn't seem really to know her either. "Most of the cottages about here is just as bad as they always was," she went on. "When Arden has the handling of the treasure, he'll see to it that poor folks lie warm and dry now, won't he?" And then, all in a minute, the children both knew, and she knew that they knew. "Why," said Edred, "you're the—" "Yes," she said, "I'm the witch come back from old ancient times. If you can go back, I can go forth. Because then and now's the same if I know how to make a clock." "Can you make clocks?" said Elfrida. "I thought it was only—" "So it be," said the witch. "I can't make 'em, but I know him as can, and I've come here to find you, 'cause you've brought me the tea and sugar. I got the wise eye, I have. I can see back and forth. I look forward and I saw ye, and I look back and I saw what you're seeking, and I know where the treasure is, and—" "But where did you get those clothes?" Edred asked, and it was a question he was afterwards to have reason to regret. "Oh dear." "Oh, clothes is easy to come by," said the witch. "If it was only clothes, I could be crowned queen this very minute." The children had a fleeting impression of seeing against the criss-cross fence of the potato patch a lady in crimson and ermine with a gold crown. They blinked, startled, and saw that there was no crimson and gold, only the dull clothes of the witch against the background of potato patch. "And how did you get here?" Edred asked. "That speckled hen of mine's a-settin' on the clock face now," she said. "I quieted her with a chalk line drawn from her beak's end straight out into the world of wonders. If she rouses up, then I'm back there, and I can't never come back here, my dears. No, nor more than once I can't. So let's make haste down to the castle, and I'll show you where my great-granny see them put the treasure when she was a little girl." The three hurried down the steep-banked lane. "Many's the time," the witch went on, "my granny pointed it out to me. It's just alongside where—" And then the witch was not there any more. Edred and Elfrida were alone in the lane. The speckled hen must have recovered from her quieting and got off the clock. "She's gone right enough," said Edred, "and now we'll never know. And just when she was going to tell us where it was, I do think it's too jolly stupid for anything. And now I know about the clothes. If they hadn't asked about the clothes and she hadn't taken the time, they would have had more time to find the answer to the question that they really wanted the answer for." Oh yes, hang on. There is a picture here. There you go. This is the lady in ermine. A lady in crimson and ermine. Crimson dress, ermine, and probably the rest of the wrappy thing. Ermine is the fur with the little black spots in it, up around the neck of it. Gold crown on her head. Lady in crimson and ermine with a golden crown. Gold crown. So there you go. That was what they saw for a moment. Carrying on against the potato patch. "And just when she was going to tell us where it was, I do think it's too jolly stupid for anything." "It's you that's too jolly stupid for anything," said Elfrida hotly. "Oh dear, here comes another quarrel," said Elfrida hotly. "What did you want to go asking her about silly clothes for? It was that did it. She'd have told us where it was before now if you hadn't made her taken her time up with clothes. As if clothes mattered. I do wish to goodness you'd sometimes try to behave as if you'd got some sense." "Go it," said Edred bitterly, "as if everything wasn't tiresome enough. Now there's another 3 days to wait because of your nagging. Oh, it's just exactly like a girl, so it is." I'm sorry," said Elfrida, awe-stricken. "Let's do something good to make up. I'll give you that notebook of mine with the lead-pointed mother-of-pearl pencil, and we'll go round to all the cottages and find out which are leaky so as to be ready to patch them up when we've got the treasure." "I don't want to be good," said Edred bitterly. "I haven't quarrelled and put everything back, but I'm going to now," he said with determination. "I don't see why everything should be smashed up and me not said any of the things I want to say." So he's going to carry on as if he is in the middle of a quarrel. "Oh, don't," said Elfrida. "It's bad enough to quarrel when you don't want to, but to set out to quarrel, don't." Edred didn't. He kicked the dust up with his boots, and the two went back to the castle in gloomy silence. At the gate, Edred paused. "I'll make it up now, if you like," he said. "I've only just thought of it, but perhaps it's 3 days from the end of the quarrel." "I see," said Elfrida. "So the longer we keep it up—" "Yes," said Edred. "So let's call it Pax and not waste any more time." That's a very good point, actually. That's a very good point. It might actually be 3 days from the end of their quarrel, which would mean that if they keep quarrelling for ages, then the 3 days is not going to be passed. Good point. I'm not going to start the next chapter because it's 48 pages long. That's a long one. But by the way, chapter 8 is called Guy Fawkes. Intriguing. I wonder where that one's going to take us, or when, I should say, when that one is going to take us. How's that? Right, so I'm going to sign off now, I suppose. It's been great having you here. You've been a very quiet bunch today, but that's all right. I don't mind. Guy Fawkes. That's Faux, F-A-U-X. Canadian in a country that speaks English and French. Guy Faux, F-A-U-X. Guy Fawkes, as in the 5th of November gunpowder plot. F-A-W-K-E-S is how it's written, the way I know. And you're probably joking about something that's just gone straight over my head. And I think I should do an emote for that. Just straight over the head. Yeah, whatever. I'm going to have to go for that. Yeah, sorry about that. There's some things that I kind of take for granted about knowing, unless somebody actually says, what was that about? Just because it's part of my, I suppose you'd say English heritage. It's more just our cultural background here in New Zealand is largely based out of England or the British Isles. Scotland and England being the two main ones. But it's just the way it works, largely. Anyway, so great to have you all here. Good to see you here too, Squibble. Thank you for being here. I hope you've been able to enjoy it a little bit. That's great. No, that's not a problem, Q. It doesn't matter whether you misheard it or not. I just realised that sometimes I will reference things that most people don't understand if they're not from New Zealand or from England or Scotland, so that's okay. The mask guy, yes, referenced in things like V for Vendetta, I think it is, the movie. But yeah, Guy Fawkes himself was actually a real person, apparently, and was in amongst the plot to overthrow the English Parliament. By blowing it up. He was caught and burned on a bonfire. Yeah. So, yeah, the first time you watch V for Vendetta, it really does just plays with your mind a little bit, plays with your head. You know, it's sort of like the reveal in the story. I did enjoy it. So, yeah. Great to have you here. Hope you've all enjoyed it. Looking forward to reading more of the story. I really am enjoying this story. And there's another one that comes after this one. It's called Harding's Luck, which is connected, but it's not a direct sequel, I think. It's probably something more to do with the House of Arden and the inheritance and things like that, but I'm not sure exactly what the details are. But I do know that this one is a 2-book series, which I'm looking forward to reading more of. Yeah, you've probably, if you're still at home sick, Q, you're quite possibly in the best place for being able to watch it at the moment. Um, so yeah, have a great rest of your day wherever you are in the world, or night wherever you are in the world. Look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being great company and enjoying the books with me. And we'll see you next time, which will be, if there's no interruptions, it will be Monday, because today's Friday here in New Zealand. So Monday, that's the other three thing that I do. I read Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 p.m. New Zealand time, which if you look on my streaming schedule page on Twitch, it will translate that to your time zone and your day of the week, so you know when to be here. I don't often miss, very occasionally I need to, just because I'm attending to, I don't know, a medical visit for one of my elderly relatives or something like that, or just some other thing that's going on. And so otherwise, I'm here 3 days a week reading, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for being here. Oh, shame. I don't know if there's, I'll see if I can find out if there is some way of seeing what the schedule is for the mobile, but yeah, it would, there should be some way of doing it, but I don't know how it would be. I don't know. If I find out, I will actually let you guys know, just because it's useful information. So have a great weekend wherever you are in the world. It's probably a half a day early for most of you to have a weekend yet. But anyway, have a great time. Oh, yeah, Discord's great for letting you know. It's a good way to do it. And also Twitch. No, not Twitch. Twitter. Except that one's usually late. Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram, which there are links for all of those things on Twitch for my the services I use. If you have a look on Instagram, it will usually tell you, because I usually try to remember to do a post before I'm going to be going live, rather than while I'm actually going live. Usually I make it beforehand, but I don't always. It's not auto posting or anything like that. So look forward to seeing you next time. It'll probably be Monday, 3 p.m. New Zealand time. And in the meantime, have a great weekend and happy reading. Bye.